I know after that delicious lunch, it's going to be hard to stay focused, but we'd like to begin our program. And I would like to invite Ms. Kathy Gentile Kinjern to our climate envoy from the Marshall Islands to give us a poem on the SIDS energy transition.
Yokoyalev, greetings from the Marshall Islands. So I was asked to share a poem at this conference, which I don't normally do as climate envoy these days, but this is a poem I wrote for a faith-based conference where I was asked to reflect on faith in the broadest sense, Christian faith, faith in God, and even faith in the climate movement, to find ways to connect the three. I would argue that the work being done here with IRENA and within the energy sectors at international and at our respective national levels requires a tenacity as well as diligent technical expertise. But I think at the end of the day that these kinds of work also requires enormous amounts of faith to believe that we can initiate the massive shifts necessary at global scales. This is faith-based work that is necessary to save threatened low-lying atolls such as our nation, the Marshall Islands, SIDS, and the rest of the world. So this is a piece called to the organizers of this church conference. I regret to inform you that I could not deliver the poem constructed from biblical passages as requested. I must confess that my feelings on organized religion is a mess, is a nest scavenged from many unanswered questions, an encyclical process of one-sided conversations, a wall, if you will, a border with cages constructed from papal declarations. A 5-year-old takes the stand is headline, is scripture. Is my mother's voice calling me to starch my Sunday best for church? I never could find the poetry in these scriptures, though I searched between the bars, between bulletproof greetings at the border where I am detained for clams from the Pacific Sea. Be specific, I was told by the immigration officer from the US. How do I know you'll leave when you say you'll leave? If I had faith in the watery logic of blind beliefs, I might still be here, believing our roots are darkness, that these floods that rise around us in our islands arise from condemnation, from lack of faith. Fate awaits us in boats as well. The 5-year-old that took the stand is our island with a death sentence. Run-on children will continue their search for safe harbor. We can at least agree this is a war predicated on droughts of belief. Every night I chew through the raw stalks of headlines and political hypocrisy, through journalists who ask, where do you find faith? I choose so that my 5-year-old can swallow the stories I regurgitate. Stories like the whale and the bird, a Marshallese legend of an arrogant whale who taunts a tiny bird, deems itself dominant, powerful. How this bird gathered a storm, thousands of birds fluttered across the sky, each one gulping down every drop of ocean, leaving an arrogant whale beached, forcing him to admit that yes, smallness is a state of mind. And yes, an ocean begins with a single drop. And yes, so too does faith. Thank you.
Excellencies, representatives of development partners, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to extend a warm welcome and Ali to all distinguished representatives at this SIDS Ministerial held in the margins of the 13th session of the IRENA Assembly. And I'd like to recognize our very own, from Micronesia, Ms. Kathy Gentile Kinjern, for that poem. It resonates with faith in the changes and movements necessary to address climate change and sets the stage for the upcoming discussions during this very important session. I would also like to recognize IRENA for their work and for convening this assembly, particularly this SIDS Ministerial meeting, offering us a unique opportunity to gather and to make decisions surrounding securing our common futures. This gathering represents an opportunity for us, SIDS, to make substantive advancements and decisions on a way forward as we look forward to COP28. We SIDS stand at the forefront of climate change, effectively losing several orders of magnitude of GDP at the advent of an event, negatively impacting our socio-economic development. We must recall that together we represent a strong faction, and our communicative voices can and must engender meaningful change and action for SIDS. We must recognize that the next 2 hours most usefully reflecting on our progress to date, but also focusing on a path ahead as it relates to financing and moving from ideas and concepts to implementation. Palau, like its fellow SIDS, fully subscribes to the achievement of SDG 7 on clean and affordable energy by 2030 and net zero emissions by 2050. We are thankful for the assistance provided to Palau through IRENA's Lighthouses Initiative to develop our energy roadmap for the 2022 to 2050. The analysis performed in this study charts the way to net zero by 2050. Looking in detail at several options for the least cost, fully decarbonized power system, it gives us ideas on how to move forward. To achieve such an ambitious target, and with Palau's current power system still dominated by fossil fuels, various renewable energy technologies have had to be considered and evaluated. To achieve such an ambitious target with Palau's current, the cost of technology to make this transition to renewable energy while addressing the economies of scales that SIDS is challenging, especially with the need for more access to financing and support. And I'd just like to share that what we've found is that in our transition, the larger the project, of course, the more cost-effective it is. And we've got to find ways to share that information on how to solve the problems that us as small islands have. That said, we are working on becoming energy independent. We have a goal of reaching 20% renewable energy by 2023. It's been a long road to get that process started, but we're happy that it's finally started, and I think our largest project will be completed in April of this year. And we hope by 2025 we can reach 45% on our roll to reach 100% by 2032. But I've been told that piecemealing it may not be the best alternative. We should just go ahead and go for the full 80% at one shot, because that way we can achieve the lowest cost for our people. If you heard me speak at previous conferences and had chances to hear that of our ambitious goal by 2032, it's not going to be easy with the limited resources that we have. And that's why we've got to find the mechanisms, and we have to be committed, and we have to be ambitious, and we have to be focused. I think we have to have faith. And we are working with our bilateral partners and multilateral partners to see how we can get the proper support and financing required to reach this ambitious goal. At COP27, we focused on shifting the narrative from negotiation to implementation. And that is the same spirit that must be maintained here. That all of our talks today and in the days to come be translated into meaningful action for the benefit of our people and for our children's future. And although we stand at the forefront of climate change, we also need to do our part at home. You know, we cannot ask our largest partners and our largest friends to take action when we don't take action at home. Otherwise, we will never go anywhere. At COP27, we saw the celebrated creation of the funding stream to address loss and damage. However, this year at COP28, we will likely see the continued debate on whether all fossil fuels, not only coal, should be phased down or out. And as more questions arise that need to be answered, we must stay committed to our goals and the paths that we have taken to achieve our goals. So lastly, I'd like to congratulate the United Arab Emirates as the host for COP28, and I look forward to participating and seeing you all in Dubai. Now, I'd like to invite Francisco Lacamera, Director General of IRENA, to deliver his welcoming remarks.
I told them my voice was strong enough, but I will come again. Intanto, first, buongiorno a tutti. Good morning or good afternoon for everyone. So, Your Excellencies, Samuel Whips Jr., President of Palau and Chair of the SIDS Ministerial. Honorable Sayosi Sovaleni, Prime Minister of Tonga. Your Excellencies, Aiken Steiner, UNDP Administrator, and as qualification, good qualification also my friend. Excellencies Majid Hassan Al-Swahidi, Director General and Special Representative of COP28. Mr. Patrizia Espinosa, ARENA and UNFCCC under his leadership, he signed this important memorandum that will be our moderator today, and thanks for this. Excellencies, representatives of development partners, dear friends. First, let me take the opportunity to extend to you my well wishes for the new year, and also to welcome you to SIDS Ministerial in the lead up to the 15th Assembly. With the new years come new opportunities, such to meet in person and to unpack issues that are critical to energy transition, climate action and sustainable development in SIDS, and discuss our expectation of COP28. And really, we all have to thank our host country, the way it has managed the fighting to the COVID and give us the opportunity to be in a safe space here today. Again, I reiterate that we will listen and will work with you and in collaboration with partners to deliver tailor-made solutions to meet the special needs and circumstances of SIDS. I hope it's been clear from the beginning our working together that SIDS for us are an absolute priority, as the least developed countries are. The key outcomes of COP27 are clear. SIDS voices have been heard in the setting up of a fund to provide financial assistance to countries impacted by the climate crisis. And this work is to continue to be developed. Whilst the mechanism and modalities are still being developed, ARENA is forging ahead by providing project facilitation and access to finance support through the Climate Investment Platform, together with UNDP, C4All, and in collaboration with the Green Climate Fund, and the Energy Transition Accelerating Financing Platform, which has already received pledge amounting to almost $1 billion to scale approximately 1.5 gigawatt of renewable energy projects. SIDS continue to lead climate efforts toward a 1.5 world by increasing commitment toward the Paris Agreement by 69% in the second round of nationally determined contribution, according to the latest ARENA analysis. It also shows that the total NDCs target for the 40 parties from SIDS that have submitted their NDCs, of which 32 had quantifiable renewable energy targets, total 11 gigawatts. This can be achieved if appropriate and tailor-made financing, technology, and capacity support is provided to SIDS, which must be facilitated through strategic, genuine, and durable partnership and the full cooperation of the international community. Since its launch in 2014, the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, coordinated by ARENA, has continued to provide support to SIDS across the gamut of needs. This includes NDC enhancement and implementation, technical assistance, capacity building, policy and regulatory advice, project bankability, facilitation and access to finance, transport, and other end-use sector. ARENA also recognized the importance of strong partnership, and I wish to acknowledge our partners, such as Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, New Zealand, and the United Arab Emirates, who have been working closely with ARENA in delivering tailor-made support that is requested by SIDS. Furthermore, the synergy with other SIDS-focused initiatives have been further strengthened with the partnership forged with the OASIS, SIDS-DOC, UNDP, and NDC partnership, as well as with the regional organizations such as SPC, CRE, and 5Cs. To share some example of our incredible work, with 5Cs, we are implementing joint activity that will boost economic recovery in the pursuit of socio-economic development, energy security, and independence in SIDS. In addition, through a joint UN Energy Compact, ARENA and OASIS are combining efforts to support the achievement of SIDS NDCs as well as the Lighthouse Initiative target of 10 gigawatts of total installed renewable energy capacity in all SIDS by 2030. I'm proud to say that we are on track to achieve this target ahead of time, as the uptake of renewables in SIDS have now reached close to 7 gigawatts by the end of 2022. But this doesn't mean that we have to slow down our efforts. We have to strengthen our efforts. We must continue to work together and ramp up our support for SIDS for the realization of their climate and sustainable development goals. There is a need for streamlining bureaucratic process in assessing climate finance, blended financial initiative, as well as risk mitigation strategies. To this end, ARENA is also seeking support and partnership with relevant stakeholders to commit to $1 billion toward a COP28 facility on empowering lives and livelihoods, renewables for adaptation, to connect people, lives, and livelihoods through renewable energy solution in agri-food and health sector. And we will come back with a focusing event during these 2 days, which can result in reducing the inherent vulnerability and enhancing adaptive capacity in SIDS. As we look towards COP28, ARENA stands ready to work with SIDS and partners in supporting the delivery of key priorities under the Climate and Sustainable Development Framework. Thank you very much, and back to you, President.
Thank you, Director General Lacarmer, for that those motivating remarks. I just want to add that this past year, especially as small island states, the cost of energy has been pushing our development backwards, and if anything, driven more people into poverty. And it's important, all those initiatives that you're taking, because I believe that united, we are stronger, and it will help, and the efforts that have been made to be ahead of our goal should be further enhanced, because energy independence and energy transition are critical for helping our people. So thank you. With that, as we move forward, I'd like to now hand the podium over to His Excellency, Seyosi Soloveni, the Prime Minister of Tonga, to deliver his remarks. Thank you.
His Excellency, President General Whips of Palau, His Excellency Reem Al Hashim, Minister of State for International Cooperation, United Arab Emirates, Mr. Francesca La Camera, Director General of IRENA, Mr. Akim Steiner, Administrator of UNTP, my fellow head of state and government, distinguished ministers from IRENA member countries, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Chairman, it is with great honor for me to speak at this significant gathering on behalf of His Majesty, King Tupou VI, and the government and the people of the Kingdom of Tonga. It is also my further honor to express the delight of my delegation and myself on the warm and welcoming atmosphere, and we therefore express our gratitude to the government of United Arab Emirates for their gracious hospitality since our arrival this morning. We can all agree that the deserved applause and praise for the moving poem on the energy transition in SIDS, eloquently delivered by Mr. Kefi Chetnyo Kitchener of the Marshall Islands, accurately captured our true dilemma. Mr. Chairman, I would like to thank Mr. La Camera, the Director General for IRENA, and his staff for all their hard work in staging the 13th of the IRENA Assembly, and for providing an agenda item that recognizes SIDS, special cases, and our special development needs, particularly for development and deployment of small and medium-scale SIDS appropriate technologies, if we are to have any chance of amplifying our energy transition for sustainable development. We meet at a time of profound change, where the world is in the midst of a continuing global energy crisis, with impacts that will be felt for years to come in terms of lost development gains. More than any other group of countries, small island developing states are less competitive because we have some of the highest energy prices in the world. That threatens our national energy security, food and water security, and places pressure on our population as they try to cope with the increasing cost of living. For the people of SIDS, the heaviest burden falls on our poorer households. A larger share of their income is spent on energy and food, and many of these households are headed by women. This means there is a significant percentage of the population without access to electricity, mostly due to affordability. The danger we now face is that heavy burden placed on our people through no fault of their own may force them to return to reliance on firewood for cooking instead of cleaner and healthier solutions. SIDS are running out of space for solar farms. Our economies will never be competitive with intermittent sources of energy such as solar and sometimes wind. Most of us are islands, thriving on corals and volcanic materials from millennia, with not enough biomass on land to generate sufficient energy. However, we have one resource, our largest, and that is the ocean. After all, we are small island developing states, but are big ocean states, or ports. Where in the Pacific, like Tonga, 99% of Tonga is ocean. SIDS have particular needs and circumstances that are made more difficult by the negative effects of climate change. For example, the severe occurrences of COVID-19 epidemic, and for Tonga, the devastating volcanic eruption exactly 1 year ago, namely for the eruption of Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano on January the 15th, 2022, that generated atmospheric shock waves, sonic booms, and tsunami waves that traveled the world. And then we have geopolitical challenges. What happened in Ukraine affects Tonga. As with the old French saying, when France sneezes, the whole of Europe catches a cold. could be replaced when the world sneezes, the whole of SIDS catches a cold, or worse. Only because we account for less than 1% of the world's population and less than 1% of greenhouse gas emission. And in the case of Tonga, Tonga's GDP represents less than 0.01% of the whole world economy. So, Mr. Chairman, SIDS have always come together in setting the pace for our energy transition in a collective race to resilience, a means to building back better, and we have taken responsibility for building our climate resilient and see the energy sector as the entry point, as the promised funding from the international community has not materialized. The Pacific States have the highest ambitions under the 2015 Paris Agreement, but tiny compared to the rest of the world due to our small sizes. According to the 2021 IRENA analysis, the Pacific region's first national determined contribution showed that all 14 Pacific States mentioned renewables, while 13 of the Pacific States have quantified renewable energy targets in their NDCs that equated to about 2 gigawatts. A total of $5.2 billion will be needed by 2030 to implement these NDCs renewable energy targets, of which 93% will be conditional that will need external investment. There is also another part of the Paris Agreement pledge, which was supposed to be delivered by December 31st, 2020, in the run-up to COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland. Namely, the provision of raising $100 billion per year from 2020 onwards to help the developing countries tackle climate change through mitigation and adaptation. This particular pledge has fallen behind and did not reach its target by December 31st. The UN's own analysis has only been able to track less than $80 million being promised by the end of 2020. There's another issue beside that of the $100 billion, which is of great importance for the vulnerable developing countries like SIDS. The proportion of the total amount being allocated to support adaptation in the most vulnerable developing countries and how the money is channeled. So far, the UN's analysis showed that only 20% of the global funds are going towards adaptation, while 80% are going towards mitigation activities in the bigger developing countries, Mr. Chairman. SIDS are being left behind. At the COP27 nation committed to working all together and together globally to address the climate emergency affecting weaker countries like SIDS. They also recognize the urgency of taking immediate action to build infrastructure for resilience and get ready for the inevitable and escalating effects of climate change. As SIDS, we urgently need more measures and assistance in our rapidly changing environment, especially with resilient infrastructure, stable and smarter grid, battery storage, sustainable transport, decentralized systems, and more focus on energy efficiency. Mr. Chairman, we have limited resources, yet SIDS have demonstrated tremendous ambition and persistence, as seen by ambitious NDCs and national energy targets. The demand to accelerate implementation as a result of transfer of clean, sound technology, financial resources, and the development of local capability is crucial. However, this is only possible if SIDS, development partners, financial institutions, and all other relevant parties collaborate to strengthen partnerships that are functional in order to provide the right and specialized energy transition solutions. The Barbados Program of Action, the Mauritius Strategy of Implementation, and the S.A.M.O.A Pathway are just few of the frameworks available to the SIDS as a means to implementation. Over the years, they have helped to define our clean transition and have become a crucial component of IRENA's work, which led to the establishment of the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative. SIDS have been fortunate to benefit from IRENA's capacity building, technical assistance, project facilitation, access to funding, energy planning, and support for our NDC implementation. It is in this context that Tonga welcomes the support of the World Green Economic Organization. A comprehensive response to call by international community for a holistic approach to spur progress on how and why a green economy is the world's best route towards a safe and prosperous future. Tonga is very much interested in learning more about the benefits available to SIDS through WGEO, from capacity building to technical and funding assistance. Mr. Chairman, we were also very pleased with the announcement made by Her Excellency, Dr. Nawal Al-Hossani, permanent representative of the United Arab Emirates to IRENA. Permanent mission of the UAE to the United Nations. During her remarks delivered at the SIDS Talk site event held on the margin of UNFCCC COP26 in Glasgow in November 2021, where SIDS Talk and our partners introduced the Global Ocean Energy Alliance, or GLOIA. Her Excellency Dr. Al-Hossani noted the launch of the UAE IRENA USD 400 million Global Climate Finance Facility, the Energy Transition Accelerator Financing, or ETAF, that will, for the first time, include financing for ocean energy, where in 2023, the UAE has host of the 28th Conference of the Parties, or COP28, scheduled for the 30th of November to the 12th of December 2023. SIDS Talk hopes to showcase support to the first ocean energy projects. The SIDS intend to showcase our integrative project pipeline comprising ocean energy projects that involve the development and deployment of thermal, wave, tidal, and other technologies developed specifically for SIDS, and we are doing this through public-private partnership. To further support the commercialization of ocean energy technologies, as President of SIDS Talk, during the sixth session of the SIDS Talk Assembly in September last year, I launched the commercial scale deployment of ocean-based and waste-to-energy SIDS appropriate technologies, primarily to help accelerate the transfer of ocean energy technology and small and medium-scale waste-to-energy technologies to small island developing states, and to help raise awareness amongst the head of states and government of SIDS that are members of both the SIDS Talk and AOSIS, the advocacy and negotiating voice for SIDS through the United Nations system. So far, we've been able to identify a group of dedicated private sector partners who are currently working with us through partnership agreement with our government, and they have developed SIDS appropriate technology and getting ready to deploy them as commercial demonstration pilots. Mr. Chairman, we must thank IRENA for their continuous support, which now more than ever, the SIDS need support to help take advantage of their largest renewable source of energy, the ocean. SIDS energy markets remain small and require greater attention. The current energy crisis serves to act as a reminder of the fragility and instability of our current energy system. According to IRENA, 40 SIDS have filed NDCs, and 32 of those SIDS have specified quantifiable renewable energy targets totaling about 12 gigawatts of installed renewable energy capacity. This capacity is anticipated to assist SIDS in contributing to the transition to the global 1.5 degrees Celsius target. Currently, we have only achieved 6.5 gigawatts of the total installed capacity. It is therefore necessary to expedite meeting this obligation in order to lower costs and increase the use of renewable energy sources, particularly with battery storage. A more robust regulatory environment, plus increased financial support and dynamic market policy framework are required to provide the essential help in a timely manner. Mr. Chairman, in preparation for COP28, which will be hosted by United Arab Emirates, the 13th session of the IRENA Assembly, and this event focused on SIDS energy transition, provides a dress rehearsal and an important platform to provide our partners, donors, and supporters with information about our plan and programs for our energy transition. This event can also help formulate our goals for action, further emphasizes the need for international cooperation, but more importantly, identify partners and ways to access climate finance so we can get the needed financial support on the ground to the most vulnerable communities and aid in the transformation of SIDS economy into a resilient, safe environment for our citizens. As we look to the fourth conference on SIDS, scheduled for 2024 in Antigua and Barbuda, let us honor the words of Ms. Chetney Kitchener, both past and present. Our children are watching and waiting. They are facing an uncertain future if action is not taken now to help build SIDS resilient to the severe impacts of climate change, sea level rise, and ocean acidification. If not, children of SIDS will be left behind. They also voice their rights to be included in the development agenda and emphasize their important role in helping to build climate resilience in SIDS. So as we head to Antigua and Barbuda in 2024 for the fourth conference on SIDS, we must be mindful to place the children of SIDS at the top of our agenda. And Mr. Francesca Lacamera, through your invitation, we have helped elevate our courses. We are very pleased that IRENA will be including ocean energy in work program. And your support for the SIDS community is evident, your commitments solid. For this, we say thank you to you and your staff, and we hope that you will put the full weight of IRENA beside the SIDS and support us as we look to the ocean as a major part of our energy mix. And in closing, I wish for IRENA a very successful 13th Assembly. And once again, thank for the government of the United Arab Emirates for being such an outstanding and supportive host. I thank you, Balawit.
Thank you, Prime Minister Soloveni. With that, we'd like to ask Dr. Majid Hassan Al-Suwadi, Director General and Special Representative of COP28, to deliver his remarks.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. Excellencies, colleagues, first of all, let me welcome you to our small island of Saadiyat. And I grew up on the small island of Abu Dhabi next door. And I will say that we always hold your countries very dear and are very, think very highly of the issues that you face. And of course, we believe that they are central to the discussion that we will have at COP28. And we, of course, welcome you here to Abu Dhabi. Thank you, Irina, for bringing us all together. And I thank you to every single one of you for being here today. We're at the start of a crucial year for global action. Yesterday, the UAE formally launched our presidency of COP28 with the announcement of the leadership team entrusted with making this milestone a moment of success. His Excellency Dr. Sultan Al Jabal will bring his decades of experience driving the UAE's clean energy journey to the role of COP28 President. Her Excellency Shem Al-Mazrou'i, the UAE's Prime Minister of Youth Affairs, will serve as our youth climate champion to engage young people across the world and bring their insights into the very heart of COP28. And Her Excellency Razan Al-Barak will draw upon her experience as President of the International Union for Conservation of Nature to mobilize the private sector and civil society to address the climate and nurture nature crisis together. This is a diverse, experienced, and hugely committed team, and they will have the full backing and support of the entire UAE leadership and indeed nation as they step forward to lead COP28 to success, because this is one of the greatest responsibilities our country has ever undertaken. It is no coincidence that at the very start of our road to COP, one of our very first priorities was to meet with small island developing states. Not only because we firmly believe the UNFCCC process must prioritize the needs of the most vulnerable to climate change, but also because we've seen the commitment, passion, and leadership you bring to this process. And as close partners in IRENA on countless renewable energy projects, we have seen the powerful example you set at home. And it's clear to us that SIDS' contribution will be a vital and integral part of COP28's success. So we look forward to visiting your countries this year and writing a new chapter in our partnership together. We want to work side by side with you at every stage of the road to COP28 to drive progress forward. Because the first ever global stocktake with the first ever global stocktake, we have perhaps the greatest political opportunity to accelerate global climate action this decade. This is our chance to come together, take stock, and most importantly of all, take action. First, on mitigation, over the next 7 years, we will need to cut global emissions by 43% to keep 1.5 alive. That means we need to hit the accelerator like never before to get finance flowing and projects underway in every country and on every continent. We need to more than triple annual renewables generation, and IRENA will be in the vanguard of this effort, including the priority of reducing the cost of capital in developing countries. Second, we must catch up on adaptation. This is a priority for every country on the front line of climate impacts, and we need COP28 to deliver serious progress through a new global goal on adaptation. Third, we must build on the positive momentum of COP27 to operationalize the new Loss and Damage Fund. And as champions who have driven this agenda from the start, we're very keen to hear your ideas and your solutions. Finally, COP28 must make progress on climate finance. MDBs and IFI's reform will be high on the agenda, alongside a focus on better leveraging of private finance, especially for renewables, and where the business case is so clear. We want this to be a key legacy of COP28 to pave the way for a new collective finance goal next year. Excellencies, colleagues, the UAE is approaching COP28 with the highest level of ambition. We're acutely aware of just how much is at stake. We know this is a question of survival. And what success could the world ever claim if one day we have people sitting in the UN behind plaques of countries that no longer physically exist? COP28 is an opportunity the whole world must unite to seize. And I'm here today to ask all of you for help, to drive climate ambition, to build global consensus, and to make COP28 the success we all want and need it to be. And we, in turn, give you our commitment to lead an inclusive and consultative process which places your views and needs and your priorities at the very heart of COP28. So I thank you very much for giving me the time, and I look forward to working with all of you throughout this year. Thank you so much.
Your Excellency Al-Swadi, thank you for being a fellow islander and your leadership that you and your government are showing in addressing the challenges that we have. So thank you for those remarks. And thank you for the hospitality. With that, we would like to ask at this time His Excellency Achim Steiner, Administrator of the United Nations Development Program, to give us his remarks.
Your Excellency, President of Palau, Sir Angel Whips Jr., my dear friend, Director General of IRENA, Francesco La Camera, Prime Minister of Tonga, Director General Al-Suwaidi, and my dear friend and colleague, Patricia, on the other end of the table. It's wonderful to join such a distinguished panel, and Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It's an honor to join you and to join you also on this occasion that, as both Director Generals have just pointed out, begins this session of IRENA with a strong focus on SIDS. There are many reasons to do so, and Prime Minister and President, you laid them out already in very eloquent ways, so I will not repeat them, but just to remind ourselves that in the complexity of the whole question of climate change, just transitions, financing, and all the challenges that are there, we are losing a race against time. I was struck when I was preparing for this session to read yet another fact that before the 2000s, small island developing states endured fewer than 10 major climate-related disasters per year. not as if that was not enough already. Over the past 2 decades, 20 major climate-related disasters have struck small island developing states each year. The devastation, the catastrophic consequences, the inability, as also our Secretary General of the United Nations has repeatedly pointed out, of the international community to find a response to this loss and damage phenomenon is striking. And as you just pointed out, Prime Minister, here we are in the year 2023, and even a promise that is now so mature that it is looking old of $100 billion has not been met. The balance sheet of a world stepping up and working with small island developing states is at best a very mixed one, and on many accounts a very disappointing one. In representing the United Nations Development Programme here with you today, I want to bring what we can bring in this rather contradictory, sometimes very frustrating, and often characterized by setbacks landscape. That is an unequivocal commitment to not stop trying and to focus every day on implementation. President, you began your speech by saying that we have to move from negotiations to implementation, and I am proud to lead an organization that is unapologetically focused on what it is that one can do despite not having the optimal conditions. A couple of years ago, we developed a specific offer for small island developing states. We called it the Rising Up for SIDS offer. It was a recognition that we are amongst a few privileged agencies that have a very significant presence in many of the small island developing states across the world, serving both US countries, also our United Nations family, and many of your partners who wish to work with you and in your support. As part of that offer, we committed ourselves by 2030 to an objective to ensure that 6 million more people across 24 small island states gain access to clean energy by 2030. As part of this work, we are working on many different fronts, trying to both facilitate financing, whether it is through some of the Global Environment Facility, Green Climate Fund venues, but also the bilateral support, but also by supporting small island developing states in better being able to also demonstrate the enormous return on investment, the unique benefit that an energy transition in the spirit of IRENA's mission actually brings. A new SIDS data platform that I would urge you all to have a look at has become one of those vehicles. You can either look it up under Google search with SIDS data platform or data.undp.org/SIDS, which is widely acclaimed to have brought together the kind of data that is also urgently necessary for SIDS to be able to not wait for funding and for those who proclaim to wish to be of support, but to frame the kind of agenda, Prime Minister, that you laid out in your speech just now. The UNDP Climate Promise, that many of you are familiar, today works with over 120 countries and currently is supporting 28 small island developing states to implement their ambitious nationally determined contributions and leveraging them, as we interpret them, as sovereign investment plans by your nations. We have established a new sustainable energy hub to try and accelerate the contribution that UNDP can make in support of the objectives. And Francesco, you were part of inspiring that, of supporting over 500 million people to gain access to affordable and clean energy. Because the challenge of our time is not only to decarbonize our energy systems, it is also to reach the billion people who still don't have access to electricity, never mind to affordable power. This is ultimately a development challenge that will both help people and the planet. This is at the center of UNDP's focus in the way that we have taken the challenge of climate change not as a separate track, but as an integral one in the Sustainable Development Goals spirit and the 2030 Agenda. We work with many of you and we learn from many of you every day. My speech is too brief today to be able to cite those examples, but I want to assure you that in the way that we interpret our role, alongside you, Francesco, and many of our partner and sister agencies, is not to bring something, but rather to create something together by combining our respective capacities, competencies, resources, and thereby enlarge the envelope of possibility. It may sound prosaic, but actually, as many of you know who work on the front line of trying to get things done despite everything every day, we can make a difference. And I'm very proud, after more than 3 years, Francesco, to once again be at an IRENA assembly, to sit next to you and to reaffirm what you also already referred to, a unique partnership that we enjoy between IRENA and the United Nations Development Programme, and the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative that IRENA has launched being just one example, the Climate Investment Platform another, and I hope many more stories unfolding on the ground where we are able to complement each other and multiply that which we can bring together to the leadership, the inspiration, and the pioneering work that so many of you in small island developing states deliver every day. And as Director General Al-Suwaidi just pointed out again, at COP27, it was you who, after years of not giving up and insisting, finally managed to get the international community to acknowledge that loss and damage is not something that we only talk and write about, it is something that needs to be acted on. And in that spirit, I want to commit UNDP very much to be an organization that will continue alongside IRENA and many others who are involved in the COP process, and therefore with great expectations also towards COP28, to support negotiations, but always in the spirit of accelerating implementation. Thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Your Excellency Malcolm Steiner, and we look forward to the many interventions between you and our partners. Thank you. With that, please bring your attention to the screens as we view a short video which really captures the human impacts of energy transition efforts in small island developing states.
We are contributing little to the impact of climate change, but we are the ones suffering the most.
Islands can actually show the way and help the bigger countries to work together to achieve those global goals.
Since solar power has been installed at my school, I have realized it is not only for reducing bills, but it is also helping to fight against global warming.
Freshwater is concerned within St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Since the introduction of the plant, we have almost zero complaints now during the dry season.
SAM.A is still heavily dependent on imported fossil fuels. The country is making efforts to transition to sustainable energy.
We've prioritized placing women at the center of energy transition policies to empower the communities to generate employment and new business opportunities.
We need funds and we need support.
Come work with us and you will see results.
If we don't contain global warming to 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, this planet ain't gonna be worth living in.
I would now like to hand over this next part of our program to Mr. Gorbuz Gono, Director of Country Engagement and Partnerships, to deliver the scene-setting presentation.
Thank you very much, Excellency. It's a great pleasure to share with you a snapshot of our work, collaborating with all SIDS and SIDS partners under the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, and try to provide you where we stand with the implementation of the program. The program, the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, it gives the overall framework for all our activities for supporting the energy transition in SIDS. It brings together, as of today, 40 SIDS and 35 partners, and we are working with them to through several initiatives in the context of providing technical assistance, dedicated analysis, as well as a new component, project facilitation support. We have worked with them in the last couple of years quite intensively in the context of their revision and implementation of the energy transition component of their NDCs. We have developed 56 work streams across areas, from statistics to planning to decarbonization roadmaps, on project facilitation in 18 SIDS, and very actively work with them. We have provided capacity building support very much tailored to the regional, sub-regional needs, country-specific needs, especially renewable energy PPAs, access to how to access the climate finance, energy management, energy audits in the countries have been some of the key areas that we have closely worked with them. Lately, we are also trying to move from those assessments, roadmaps that we have undertaken into how we can use them for materializing investments. We have worked with the countries in developing decarbonization roadmaps, assessments, renewable energy assessments, sectoral assessments, regulatory and technical analysis, grid assessments, but how we can translate them into actual investments. That's the effort, and we have the means for that. I mean, Director General already mentioned about some of the platforms that we have developed, Climate Investment Platform, ETAF, which we hope that will accelerate developing strong pipelines of projects in those in different SIDS regions, but also how we can facilitate access to affordable finance for islands. Director General already mentioned about the new COP28 initiative that we are currently working on, and we aim to curtain raise the initiative later this weekend. That is specifically for, and SIDS are at the center of it together with LDCs. The whole idea is how we can help deployment of decentralized renewable energy solutions, supporting lives and livelihoods, with particular focus on agriculture and health sectors. With that, before I close, I would like to give some a quick overview of two of the most recent analyses we have undertaken dedicated to SIDS. One was on NDCs. We looked at the latest NDCs. And what we see is this analysis shown us that increased commitments from SIDS to climate action through the second round of NDCs. And these increased commitments also reflect the main drivers of renewables deployment in SIDS, which are food and water security, access to healthcare, education, improved quality of life, job creation and gender equality, economic growth, energy security and independence, digital transformation, and strengthening resilience to disaster. Thus, in a nutshell, it is all about their survival. The second area that we have undertaken, and very recent analysis, but we looked into the costs, but costs specifically for renewable energy deployment costs, but specifically for SIDS. And at the global level, the cost reductions for solar PV and onshore wind, these are the two technologies we have closely looked into. They have made renewables an attractive and sustainable and economic solution. But what we see is this has been slowly translated and experienced in the SIDS in recent years. IRENA's costing analysis shows that cost reductions for solar PV are largely driven by capital and equipment cost reductions, but onshore wind cost reductions have allowed for many resource size, much smaller size, to be exploited. For SIDS, small renewable energy projects with battery storage in remote and rural communities can be capital intensive, but are almost always cheaper than the alternative, the diesel gensets. Let me close by recognizing our all partners for their contribution to the successful delivery of SIDS Lighthouses Initiative program, which was in fact very recently been recognized with the UN Partnership Award granted to the SIDS Lighthouses program. So thank you very much for closely working with Irina, to all SIDS and the partners working with us in the implementation of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cano, for a very informative and enlightening presentation. And with that, we'd move into our roundtable, the SIDS roundtable. I'd like to hand over the reins to Ms. Patricia Espinoza, the former Executive Secretary of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, who will moderate this important session. Thank you. Patricia.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and allow me to start by saying how honored and grateful I am to be able to do this moderation, to be able to facilitate this very important dialogue. Over the years, since I got involved in the climate change process, first as president of COP16 in 2010, and later on as executive secretary, the situation, the special needs, the importance of listening and taking fully into account the needs and the aspirations of SIDS has been really a central issue for me. So it is a true honor for me to have this opportunity, and I thank Irina for this invitation. Let me also especially thank the President of Palau, President Whips, Francesco La Camera. Let me thank also the Prime Minister of Tonga, His Excellency Sovaleni, and my good friend Achim, as well as Ambassador Suwaidi, for your remarks and for presenting extensive elements for the conversation today. As you all know, the objective of this session, of this roundtable, and I have to say, unfortunately, we're running a bit late, so I will be very brief, and I would ask all of you to be as brief as possible, is to really offer your perspectives and insights in the leading up to COP28. I do believe that this is particularly valuable to the UAE incoming presidency, and also to share your views and updates on what is going on in your respective countries. So I will not take any more time and just go directly into our dialogue, asking you kindly to stick to a very, very tight timeline. We said we had thought about 3-minute interventions, but I have to say it's now 3:12, and we should be ending by 3:55, and we have a list of 16 or 17 speakers. So I would like to underline that you bear with me if I try to ask you to finalize your interventions. First of all, I would like to give the floor to the Honorable Bob P. Miller, Minister of Environment and Natural Resources from the Bahamas.
Madam Moderator, the Director General, Your Excellencies, I shall be brief, and we're grateful, we're thankful. We've come a long ways to be here, and we want to commend you for the wonderful hospitality thus far. We look forward to a very informative conference and a time of sharing. We're thankful for your contribution to us over the years, and it has certainly contributed to our national development as we seek to accomplish our goal of 30-30, that's 30% renewable by the year 2030. Like other small island developing states, the negative effects of climate change is a reality for us, and we look forward to continued great relations with IRENA, and as we seek to transition to renewable energy through the implementation of our OTEC initiative. We're thankful and we're grateful, and we look forward to your continued support. So on behalf of our Prime Minister and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and of course our delegates who are here with us, again, we're thankful, we're grateful to be here, and we look forward to continued great relations with IRENA and your continued support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I give now the floor to the Honorable Lisa Cummins, Minister of Energy and Business from Barbados. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And since this is the first time Barbados is speaking in this assembly, I would wish to extend our appreciation to our very gracious hosts, the UAE. Thank you very much for your exceptional hospitality here in Abu Dhabi, and also to the IRENA Secretariat team for the excellent conference arrangements for the events being held here today. I know that for many of us, returning to normalcy means that we're once again able to gather as professionals, technocrats, and legislators in forums such as these to discuss important issues. And certainly from the perspective of Barbados, I bring greetings also from our Honorable Prime Minister, the Honorable S.A.M.O.A Motley. She sends greetings to us and successful deliberations here today. Of course, in the case of Barbados, we elaborated our national energy policy in 2019, and so today's discussions in 2023 are important, certainly for Barbados as a SIDS and the host of the SIDS conference. I believe I was a young professional in the early days when the SIDS conference was held in Barbados. But in 2019, when we elaborated on our energy policy, it was pre-COVID, it was pre-war in Ukraine and Russia. It was pre-increasing costs for imported fossil fuels, and it was pre the COP meeting. And so much has happened subsequent to the development of the Barbados National Energy Policy, making today's deliberations and the run-up to COP28 even more critical. For small island developing states like Barbados, who have already set an aggressive target which allows us to map our way through to net zero future in 2030, the provision of collaborative fora such as these, engagements with international partners like those who are gathered here and those who will assemble over the coming days, and the investment in the transition of national energy policies over time will be incredibly critical. And I'm looking forward very much to working with all of you, working with the colleagues here, and in particular to elaborating even further on what we hope to be the next stage of the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative, specifically focusing on the implementation specifically for countries that did have a pathway prior to COVID-19 and all that has transpired subsequent. Thank you very much for having us, and we will have an opportunity to share more a little later.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to the Honorable Ro Felipe Tuisawao, the Minister for Public Works, Communications, Transport, and Meteorological Services of Fiji. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Your Excellencies, Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. President and Ministers, Heads of Delegations, Director General IRENA and staff, ladies and gentlemen, at the outset I would like to thank and congratulate Director General of IRENA and his staff for the great work that they have carried out in supporting the development agenda of the small island states, developing states, particularly in achieving their energy transition targets. I would like to convey the sincere appreciation and gratitude of our new Prime Minister, Honorable Sithiben Rambuka, who have just took office a few weeks ago, and would like to make it, who couldn't make it to this very important meeting. I would like to give our assurance and reaffirm our government's commitment in supporting the work of IRENA and the Sustainable Development Agenda of SIDS. We have recognized the need for economic development while preserving our world for future generations. We have taken a collective voice and decisive action in pursuing our agenda for energy transition. Our energy transition pathways are confronted with a number of key issues and challenges similar to other SIDS in terms of the impacts of climate change on our small economy and infrastructure. I believe that we all witnessed the devastating effects of natural disasters on our infrastructure. Our investment over decades of sacrifice and perseverance can be wiped out in a matter of hours. Fiji, like SIDS, continue to experience more cyclones with greater intensity, with devastating effects, especially on vulnerable communities. These events have increased the vulnerability and also the negative effects on our populations. Even though our emissions are negligible, we have set very high commitments and targets through a number of frameworks, as you would know, S.A.M.O.A Pathway, the NDC's Paris Agreement, and also Sustainable Development Goals and the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, as mentioned. We have set our target to reduce our carbon emission by 30% by 2030, and this will require investment up to a tune of $3 billion. These are very capital-intensive, which cannot be funded by our government alone, and we will need the participation and investments of private sector and financial institutions and your support. We need to set up innovative and de-risking financial support and facilities for private sector to access. We are committed to transform and decarbonizing our energy and transport sector. We need to increase the uptake of renewable energy to close to 100% by 2036 from the current rate of around 55%. And we are working with our municipal councils, stakeholders, to introduce e-mobility in our transport sector. In addition, we've also put in place incentives to private sector to invest into electronic transport and charging stations throughout the nation. I would like to again thank SIDS for the decisive leadership and the commitment shown over the years, and to continue to punch above our weight despite our limited resources, and look forward to continued contribution and cooperation. And I end by wishing the UAE COP28 leadership team all the very best in its preparations to make COP28 a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. I give now the floor to the Minister of State for Environment, Climate Change and Technology of the Maldives, the Honorable Khadija Nasim. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Good afternoon, Excellencies. I would like to first thank the IRENA and the UAE for the wonderful hospitality. It is truly an honor to be able to join the representatives from fellow small island developing states, especially to voice out our expectations for this year's COP28 conference. For an island nation like the Maldives that falls more on the slow onset side of the spectrum, we're deeply engaged with ensuring a global goal on adaptation that is viable, sustainable, and delivers on ensuring long-term well-being, which is commensurate of our climate risks. This means that by amplifying our means of implementation, vulnerable countries should be able to undertake our adaptation actions adequately and effectively in key thematic areas, which include food security, water, health, and biodiversity. For Maldives, it is imperative that we have the resources needed to strengthen our critical infrastructure and provide further protection to our shorelines. Though we have made undeniable progress, our capacity constraints, particularly those of access to sufficient finance to carry out environmental protection and conservation, climate change adaptation and sustainable waste management work continue to be a great challenge. More than often, our environmental adaptation efforts are domestically funded, which involves reallocation of scarce government resources that could have otherwise gone to social safeguarding, education, and empowerment. There will always be risks involved with any investments in a climate-changing world. Financial risks will persist as we surpass global temperatures and witness subsequent market shocks. However, we can't expect to wait until all policies are properly integrated. For SIDS, we need to live in a realistic world and act while we still can. As in the case with the current energy crisis, despite the increase in challenges that have been imposed as a result, we do not see financial institutions adapting with the required urgency. Business as usual at 2023 is significantly different from business as usual even a decade ago. Unless financial institutions change their operating procedures to reflect the current reality of the world we live in, this only disadvantages countries like the Maldives. So delivering on adaptation finance through the global goal on adaptation is paramount to initiate necessary on-the-ground action well before soft and hard limits of adaptations are breached. It must not go unsaid that these limits to adaptation are already being exceeded. And delays in providing sufficient finance for adaptation will only increase the urgency and need to finance loss and damage responses. The work undertaken this year prior to COP28 through the Transitional Committee must ensure that developing countries, particularly vulnerable SIDS, are taken into account and that a mosaic of options are present to finance economic and non-economic loss and damage, both in the slow and rapid onset. Additionally, the first global stocktake will conclude this year, and the information we are set to receive will be crucial to identify where we are in terms of achieving pledges and goals, and the gaps that exist in delivering on climate change adaptation and mitigation. The first GST will also play a key role in assessing how much support is needed from multilateral development banks and other partners to ramp up the predictability and consistency of finance for SIDS. So COP28 will be one of our only chances within this decade to analyze progress and critically reflect on what more needs to be done so that we can push to keep 1.5 alive and ensure a sustainable, climate-resilient future for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I give now the floor to the Honorable Thomas Opa, Vice Minister for Petroleum and Energy, Papua New Guinea. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Patricia Espinosa, Your Excellency, Honorable Surangil Whips Jr., Excellencies, distinguished delegates. PNG would like to thank you for giving us the floor as we join in our colleagues before us in acknowledging, addressing this important dialogue. PNG would like to echo the same sentiments as the others who have spoken before us on the special circumstances of small island developing states, SIDS, in these current times, and the strength and resilience shown by SIDS members in the implementation of our nationally determined contributions, NDC, with limited and in most instances, deprived support. PNG is no different. Given the challenges that we face in implementing our climate action, there has been some significant progresses since Paris for PNG, some of which are the development and submission of our second NDC, the passing of an energy policy and legislation as enablers for energy transition and green investment, setting up of an energy authority that regulates both the entire energy sector in PNG, including electricity, in developing underway for various energy and electricity policies, regulations, and commencement of mandatory fossil fuel data collection. While we acknowledge the support given to us to progress some of the key policies and frameworks, I would like to mention that support received have been limited to technical and capacity building. Full implementation has been fully supported by our government, and that is the challenge given other service sectors, which also need similar financial and budgetary support from our government. To this date, PNG still struggles with the access of reliable and scalable renewable energy technology for energy transition. Instead, we continue to witness acceleration of non-renewable energy production and consumption in our country, aging energy infrastructure that cannot be replaced by predictable technology accessed by our consumers and energy suppliers. We are concerned that 2030 will just become another signpost we reach with more talk and no action. This year's global stocktake will certainly assess our own actions, the support from our own governments, and our continued vulnerabilities as a group of small island development states with our own unique circumstances. The SIDS represent the strong voice, the voice of our people, the voice of our islands, our men and women and children, and the most vulnerable. We need to reach 2030 with a change of focus and some real action. For PNG, we are willing to work with you all and find solutions, starting with the fossil fuel sector, where our recent concluded 2021 data continues to indicate no reduction at all in our domestic usage. PNG stands ready to work with the United Arab Emirates government on one of their proposed policy considerations for COP28, and that is target setting for powering oil and gas production with renewables. We even want to extend that consideration to operationalizing the COP27 outcome on energy and just transition by calling for a global fossil fuel mitigation framework that should support global transition in the fossil fuel industry. Furthermore, target setting for powering oil and gas production with renewables could be a positive activity under operations. The global stocktake should change the goalposts for implementation and acceleration of the energy transition efforts in our countries beyond 2023. We as a country stand ready to support further dialogue with our SIDS members and what is expected of the COP28 presidency. In closing, we acknowledge and thank the United Arab Emirates government and look forward to working with the incoming COP president. Excellencies, we thank you all.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Dear ministers, excellencies, let me also reiterate the very kind request for you to be brief. We have only 25 minutes left, and we have still 11 speakers on our list. So having said that, I give now the floor to the Honorable Adelino Cardoso, the Minister of Infrastructure, Natural Resources, and Environment of São Tomé and Príncipe.
Thank you very much, but sorry, I will speak in French. Cher le Président, Monsieur le Premier Ministre.
Mr. Prime Minister, Your Excellencies, Distinguished College, on behalf of the government of São Tomé and Príncipe, I applaud IRENA for this initiative, and particularly the Prime Minister and the heads of government who unfortunately couldn't be with us for the 13th Assembly of IRENA. I also applaud your presence and the ministers to be able to take part at this assembly. The objectives of sustainable development and the advisor intermediary, the good governments and the support of development partners have encouraged policies to focus on renewable energy forms. Please allow me to set out the priorities of my country. And we want to move over 25 megawatts. And this represents enormous reduction for our country. And frequently the development was hampered but by problems with solar problems and imported fossil fuels, high electricity costs, and inadequate sourcing infrastructure. However, the country has sufficient renewable energy resources which could be fully subject to fully explored to meet all energy needs. Now, this is fundamental for promoting renewable energies, although the country has only limited public financing. We are banking renewable energy forms, and with regard to the Paris Agreement 2015, strategies are being drafted by my government in cooperation with development players to do what needs to be done to assist the various sectors concerned and to reduce carbon consumption and efficiently contributing to meeting the demands made by the development, the sustainable development of our island. And of course, there is a growing demand for renewable energy forms. And the market of solar panels has to be further explored in our country. How the mechanisms have attracted private investment for renewable energy and ensured an independent energy production. Now, this has been somewhat rendered more complex by the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, with financial consequences at world level. Now, this Sao Tome and Principe, however, wishes to firm up on its commitments at national level and to reinforce its energy security and to meet the demands of the country based on the Paris Agreement commitments and make national efforts to attain the long-term objectives to keep the temperature below a certain level. This strategy incorporates various support dimensions, the planning of investment and strengthening partnerships, and also increasing the training technical aspects and taking greater consideration of risk so as to contribute to the global efforts as regards renewable energy. Now, as we're aware, the objective of the CDN of Sao Tome and Principe at the end of 2021 is to achieve 50% of renewable energy forms, and has been achieved due to the installation of photovoltaic panels and with battery storage measures and other energy efficient measures, ensuring improvement of 26%. Now, these objectives are linked up to other policies already available and are linked to energy efficiency policies as regards the strategic planification for electricity, national electricity, and as well as based on the directives of my government. Sao Tome and Principe would like to continue was able to count on the support of ARENA and also the investment made available to ensure the energy transition process. Now, within this framework, it is doing everything it can to forge partnerships and to secure the appropriate investment by analyzing the costs and looking at NDCs. And on the part of energy transition in the country, it is looking at how to reduce fossil fuels and encouraging the deployment of renewable energy forms in an efficient manner as part of its overall development policy for all, and focusing on energy security and sustainable economic growth. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, and let me allow me to kindly again remind you about the time limitations that we are experiencing. And it's now my pleasure to hand over the floor to His Excellency Flavien Joubert, the Minister of Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment of the Seychelles. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Honorable President of Palau, Honorable Prime Minister of Tonga, Special Representative of the Government of UAE, Director General IRENA, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. At the outset, I wish to thank the government and people of the United Arab Emirates for the warm welcome, gracious hospitality, and generous support to our delegation. It is indeed a pleasure to be here to share with you the perspectives of Seychelles. Like all SIDS, Seychelles is doing its part to address the climate challenges through low carbon transition, building resilience to mitigate and adapt to the impacts of climate change. We, however, recognize the fact that as a country, we need to go beyond our current ambitions of 15% renewable. More importantly, all countries should work harder as a collective, as this is about the survival of nations and of humanity itself. COP27 has taught us that global events can sap momentum and cause us to lose sight of the ultimate goal. We have to recognize that more than ever, there is a need to stay committed and work together to achieve real results, taking advantage of the opportunities presented by IRENA and similar global mechanisms. COP28 should be a point at which we get back on track to keeping 1.5 degrees alive, but also a point where we start to perceive some of the enabling mechanisms for SIDS to make good on the ambitions to sustain significant climate action, especially support for loss and damage, debt relief, and access to affordable finance. In a similar way to other island states, Seychelles is limited in size and resources and cannot go it alone. In order to make significant progress, the support of private players and external partners are necessary. Alongside this, the macroeconomic as well as the knowledge dimension must be favorable. At this end, I would like to thank IRENA for the work and support, and especially through the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative. The progress they have made in promoting the adoption and sustainable use of all forms of renewable energy in the pursuit of sustainable development and prosperity for all SIDS is very commendable. Moreover, the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative has provided SIDS a forum to share best practices and ideas from other SIDS and a means to brainstorm for solutions to many of our common issues. Renewable energy is a sector on which Seychelles is placing a lot of effort in order to ensure security of energy supply, as well as doing our part to combat climate change. This issue of energy security is one of great concern to us, as we depend almost entirely on imported petroleum products for our energy needs. Our long-term national interest is not served by such a precarious situation. Seychelles has already started its journey towards a low-carbon economy. Following the installation of a 6-megawatt wind farm, we have focused on development of solar energy initiatives. To date, we have more than 7.1 megawatts of distributed rooftop PV installed, a 5-megawatt PV farm for the public utility company, and 1-megawatt collective PV farm to support the vulnerable households who meet their energy requirement. The latter is part of our initiative to democratize access to renewable energy. We are also expanding our solar school program by ensuring that all state schools that do have PV installation get access to renewable energy, that do not have PV installation get access to renewable energy. For the outlying islands of Seychelles, we have installed more than 3 megawatt solar battery hybrid systems, which are currently contributing between 80 to 98% of electricity generation on these islands. The task to transform our energy sector is huge. For example, the technical challenges of integration of variable sources of energy to the grid is very challenging. However, we remain committed to resolving these, and in addition, the country is exploring other opportunities to contribute to our energy needs, such as waste-to-energy, which was set in motion last year, and marine renewables. Seychelles is currently developing a 5-megawatt floating PV project on the marine environment, and we are planning to scale it up to other areas around the country. In concluding, I would like to once again thank IRENA for its work, and I commend the organization and its key partners, the UAE, being an important one in the assistance rendered to member states to assist the energy transition. We look forward to the outcomes and opportunities presented by the global stocktake. Likewise, I voice encouragement to our island sisters and brothers. Despite the current difficulties, let us not lose hope, but let's continue to be the torchbearers for climate action and look towards COP28 as an inflection point where action overtakes global discussion. Finally, I turn to our host and president of COP28 to thank the government and the people of the UAE for hosting us here, but to also state that we SIDS count on your leadership to forcefully bend the arc of history and give us a COP that delivers big dividends for the world's climate, because we all depend on it. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. I give now the floor to the Honorable Bradley Tobosia, the Minister of Mines, Energy and Rural Electrification of the Solomon Islands. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, for allowing me, on behalf of the Solomon government, to attend to this very important meeting. Also, I want to recognize the presence of the Director General of IRENA, Mr. Francisco, the President of the Palau His Excellency, the words, the Prime Minister of Tonga, His Excellency, is also here, UN representative, colleague ministers, observers, ladies and gentlemen. Solomon Islands, for Solomon Islands, investing in renewable energy would contribute significantly in achieving our Sustainable Development Goals, 6, as well as the targets in meeting our national determined contributions, NDGs and the SDG 7s. Affordable and clear energy, and by developing and investing in geothermal energy in critical to meet the SDG 7. Solomon Islands is the highest cost of electricity in the region or within the SIDS. This is largely due to the high tariff and the scatteredness of the Solomon Islands, which makes it very challenging. Therefore, this hinders our efforts and progress to meet this CGS, noting SDG 1, no poverty, SDG 8, decent work and economic growth, and SDG 9 is industry, innovation and infrastructure relates in CG 7. Without affordable and clean energy, this will be challenging for us to meet the SDGs by 2030 targets. My government acknowledged that the 2014 S.A.M.O.A Pathway has created a framework under the United Nations. Widely, it calls for accelerated efforts by developed countries and development partners to support the SIDS in sustainable energy. This aligns with the 2012 Barbados Declaration on Achieving Sustainable Energy for All in Small Island Development States. At the regional level, we do have the 2050 Blue Pacific strategy, whereby support for the renewable energy comes under climate change. In view of the international and the regional framework supporting sustainable energy as a solution to reducing greenhouse emissions and keeping the global temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius, we need to take proactive measures as SIDS and as SIDS. As SIDS, though we share similar issues, challenge, but our development pathways differs. Some are progressing well and in advance, where others are still in need of support. Therefore, we need to understand the different context challenges SIDS face. I think our country Somaliland is scattered everywhere, so I think that's a difficulty we have faced since we exist. For example, Somalians, we need support for the development of a proper implementation of our national energy policy. That includes support for investment in geothermal power plant. Cooperation. As SIDS, we need to share knowledge and experience with each other. I think I've other dialogue this morning I've heard about. They have comprehensively said a lot of things about Somalians, which I think we are sort of going into knowing each other very well, and so I thank you for the other dialogue this morning. We learned we need to learn best practices, what works, what are the challenges faced, how do we overcome such challenges, and how can we progress our efforts in developing policy frameworks, but support for development of renewable energy as an alternative energy source. In terms of a success story, as far as the country has done a feasibility study in one of the islands in the country with high potential to provide geothermal energy. Based on the preliminary assessment done, the island of Savo, which is close to Gilgal, where the capital Honiara is located, can provide 15 to 18 megawatts of power using geothermal. On the hydro aspects of investment, a 15 megawatt hydro power plant will be constructed starting June this year, 2023. Thank you, Arena, for the support that you're part of the funding of this Tina Hydro project.
I think with the cooperation the Somalians are faced with the geopolitics. We have now had a new friends. We have met with the China, the People's Republic of China, and we have this geopolitics very big in the Somalians. Countries, they send in NGOs to do different things altogether against the government, which is it's a thing that our country is facing. And I'm just raising this to this meeting so that maybe other countries can know that as well. It's more like an hindrance to all our intention. Given the vulnerability faced by SIDS and the lack of resources, capacity and capability that hinders the effects and the progress to achieve the full potential of geothermal measures, SIDS need to support of all development partners, including the private sector. International framework such as 2012 Barbados Declaration on achieving a sustainable energy for all in small island development states and the 2014 S.A.M.O.A Pathway are the basis of getting the much needed support. In this connection, some islands call on the international community to support SIDS to realize their full potential. The SDG 13 calls for climate action, and there are billions of dollars being pledged, committed by the international community to support the climate-related projects that are aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emission and the global temperature to below 1.5 degrees Celsius. Whereas what SIDS needs is action and support and less talk. That is what SIDS require in order to fully realize the potential and the renewable energy in the small developing states. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. And again, please excuse me if I kindly remind you again about the time limitations. And it's now my honor to give the floor to the Honorable Ralph Regenvanu, Minister for Climate Change of Vanuatu. Over to you, sir.
Excellencies, thank you very much for the opportunity to be at this important meeting. I thank you to the UAE, especially for hosting us. Thank you to Irina for the assistance you've given us as a member of the Lighthouse Group. Vanuatu has very ambitious targets, including 100% renewable energy in our electricity sector by 2030, which is 7 years' time. We have already produced our revised and enhanced NDC, which is energy sector-centric, and we have around 150 targets. It's one of the first NDCs produced that is costed, cost of about over $1.2 billion to meet all these targets, including the energy targets. For us, it's very clear that energy security is renewable energy, which is why we're heading that way. We have just released in the last couple of months our long-term low-emission development strategy, and we are now working on aggregating entity to be able to better influence and receive development partnership financing. We look forward to working with the UAE, in particular in the Global Alliance on Green Economy, to finding ways to bring more money to the energy sector so we can achieve our very ambitious goals. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. I turn now to the Honorable Nielu Meisake, the Minister of Transport, Energy and Tourism of Tuvalu.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Mr. Chairman, the President of the Republic of Palau, Honorable Prime Minister, and Ministers of SIDS and partners. Tuvalu would like to congratulate UAE announcement of COP28 President and leading team. Congratulations. Tuvalu is currently generating 19% of energy from solar system. Our aim was 30% renewable energy uptaking, especially in solar. But the pandemic affected maintenance schedules as Tuvalu undertook border closures, affecting shipping and transportation of supplies. We have mentioned and written to Irina our development challenges with regard to deterioration in the battery banks, and storage of our solar power in the remote islands. Currently, the new initiative includes a Taiwan project for solar power to put air conditioning of all primary schools in the islands, which are connected to the power grid so as they can boost power output in the outer islands and ensure unhidden learning and prolonged life of digital equipment. A biogas project in our only secondary school from the SAID Future Energy Award on the 16th January 2018, funded by the UAE, was an important undertaking in the recent past. Mr. Chairman, other assistance include the increasing accessing to renewable energy project funded under the ADP, the facilitation of the achievement of Sustainable National Energy Target Project, FASTNet, funded under the GEF, clean energy projects under the Taiwan Energy Sustainable Development Project under the World Bank. Mr. Chairman, we must respond to the unique challenges of our members. And for us in the SIDS and Pacific, recognizing the climate change challenge brings an additional hurdle to bear on our SIDS development aspiration. We appreciate Irina's tailored approach to the nuanced geographical, culture, political, and economic structures and confine of our membership and beyond. Irina should continue valuable facilitation to research and knowledge, data, matchmaking of renewable energy technologies, and investment transfer, and policy and capacity support and development. Replication of successful and best practice from the implementation phases of the IRENA SIDS Lighthouse Initiative and the IRENA Energy Compact, or knowledge sharing of the ETF platform intended objectives will be appreciated. For COP28 and the stock take in particular for financing modalities, we seek to ensure the 2020 $100 billion goal is met to give confidence across all finance mechanisms. The establishment and the expertise implementation of the loss and damage finance facilities agreed at COP27 is important for SIDS. To value renewable effort complements our full support to the fossil fuel non-proliferation treaty and the POCA agreement in order to achieve 1.5 degrees Paris mandate. I thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister. I turn now to His Excellency Henry Puna, the Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. Over to you, sir.
Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year and warm Pacific greetings. Thank you for the opportunity to bring some more perspectives from the Blue Pacific continent this afternoon. At the outset, let me say that energy security remains at the heart of our long-term survival and prosperity in the Pacific, as set out in the 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent, our region's overarching strategic policy vision. We are an oceanic region comprising small island states that are spread far and wide across the Pacific, with remote islands often located far away from capital cities and metropolitan centers. We therefore rely heavily on important energy sources to ship goods, to transport people, and to power our businesses and our homes. We often pay some of the highest energy prices per unit in the world by virtue of our relatively small population sizes and remote geographical locations. Therefore, we are badly affected whenever there are fluctuations in energy prices or supply shocks. The current global energy crisis has driven global oil prices up, and in turn putting sharp output pressure on our own fuel, food, and electricity prices, highlighting just how vulnerable we are at present. Excellencies, it is why we in the Pacific remain firmly wedded to the transition to renewables. And in this context, I am happy to indicate that there have been significant shifts across our region already as countries make the move to more climate-friendly and sustainable energy sources. Added to this, the Pacific region is rich in renewable energy sources with potential for hydropower, solar, wave energy, and to a lesser extent, wind. This potential provides the impetus for Pacific countries to actively seek investments to further develop these energy sources. A number of our countries have already put in place renewable energy policies with short, medium, and long-term targets that indicate where the actions and investments will be focused, policies that are, of course, integrated with our wider NDCs and our targets. For me, it is something of a privilege to be speaking to you on this topic, given that during my 10 years as Prime Minister of the Cook Islands, I led our country's solar energy transition process, resulting in over 80% of our national electricity now being produced by solar energy. The outstanding 20% is due to the lack of technology for storage of energy. Excellencies, as we manage the sustainable energy transition, I am heartened by the fact that we are also helping reduce the causes of climate change. I am proud that many of our Pacific Island nations remain committed to this action, not simply for economic and development purposes, but also because of its contribution to environmental protection and human and planetary sustainability. At this juncture, I want to call on our development partners, the multilateral financial institutions and private investors to make the commitment to invest and channel financial resources at scale, coupled with technology transfers towards renewable energy transformation in Pacific Small Island developing states. These are critical factors in ensuring that PSIDS fully transition to renewable energy, thus reducing greenhouse gas emissions and providing energy for communities that currently do not have access. Your actions would truly ensure that we are amplifying the transitions that are much needed. Chair, Excellencies, friends, in closing, renewable energy offers the promise of greater energy security for all, and the decisions we reach must facilitate access to finance and new technologies, including access to intellectual property rights, to allow renewable energy to be fully realized and transformational as part of the solution to the climate and energy crisis we're all facing. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I now turn to His Excellency George Rebelo Pinto Chiconti, Secretary General of the Organization of African, Caribbean, and Pacific States. Over to you.
The seat seems to be vacant.
Thank you. I hear he is running late. So let me turn now to Ms. Dite Juul Jorgensen, the Director General from the European Union. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be able to participate in this Ministerial of SIDS. In the interest of time, I have just one message, and that is to underline and reaffirm of our close partnership with SIDS and of our continued support for SIDS in the run-up to COP28 here later this year. We look forward to continuing to work with you to align our sustainable energy systems and the climate resilient strategy for a more resilient energy system based on renewables and energy efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you also to the European Union for being such a strong partner for SIDS and for the work that Irina is doing in this area. I turn now to His Excellency Frederik Wieselink, the Energy Envoy of the Netherlands. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I will try to be short, and the intervention of the Kingdom of the Netherlands will be done by me and my colleague from Curaçao. At COP27, the Netherlands officially announced to join this forward-looking initiative. And that is for a reason, because 3 islands in the Caribbean, Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba, are part of the Netherlands. And we also work closely with Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten, the 3 autonomous islands within the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And together we have ambitious aims. And Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba have their own plans to generate green power. And we encourage and support these initiatives, including finance. We have dedicated significant funds to stimulate innovation as well, to achieve 80 to 100% renewable energy capacity in the upcoming years in these islands. And Curaçao, Aruba, and Sint Maarten, they pursue their own climate and energy policies, but we also offer them roadmaps towards sustainable energy supply, similar as for Bonaire, Sint Eustatius, and Saba. And finally, together with Aruba, we are exploring the possibility to organize a Caribbean climate and energy conference this year for and with the islands of our kingdom. And here, along the line with SIDS Lighthouses' clear 2030 goal, we want to speed up the achievement of the climate and energy goals of our Caribbean islands, and we are considering to invite the Caribbean islands, the other Caribbean islands, with similar challenges to this conference, as we are open to learn from each other's best practices today and throughout the year on towards COP28. Thank you.
Thank you. As part of the Dutch Kingdom, it is a privilege for Curaçao to share the following in the 6th ministerial session of this assembly of the IRENA. Following a meeting with Mr. Francesco La Camera in his function as the Secretary General of the IRENA earlier this year, the Minister in charge of Economic Development on behalf of the government of Curaçao did submit a letter in last December to mention Secretary General to become part of IRENA and more in particular to join the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative. Why is IRENA important for Curaçao? It is of utmost importance to make use of this platform and resources of IRENA in its path to decarbonize and embark on the road to get engaged in the use of renewable energy to realize a sustainable economic development in a safer climate and resilient environment. The main objective is to gain technical and knowledge transfer, capacity building, like twinning with the relevant institutions, and where possible to tap into the financing possibilities. And what are the initiatives and actions of Curaçao with respect to renewable energy till 2035? And that's the following. In an alliance with the Dutch state and its private sector, Curaçao has the ambition and already initiated with the preparations like a system study to produce in the first phase up to 2026 through a pilot project 70 to 80 megawatt through floating wind turbines to produce hydrogen. In the second phase, 300 to 500 megawatt, and by 2035, in the third phase, 3 to 5 gigawatt to produce hydrogen and among others ammonia and methanol. Being a SID, a limited amount will be for local consumption and the vast majority for export. To conclude, Curaçao has the ambition to become a regional leader in the design, installation, and production of green energy and operation of electrolyzers and production of relevant green carriers alongside with the IRENA. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. And let me turn to our last speaker in the list for today, Dr. Holger Klitzing, the head of unit in the Foreign Office of Germany. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity to have some concluding remarks at this round of interventions. I think it was aptly said in the presentation that we saw the SIDS are certainly among the most vulnerable as far as climate change is concerned, but certainly the least responsible at the same time. And in this context, it is crucial that all countries, especially the largest economies and emitters, significantly increase their efforts again for COP28. We have to advance the global energy transition with a clear signal to phase out all fossil fuels and rapidly expand renewable energies. We are aware that for SIDS, it's as much about mitigation as it is about adaptation and resilient development. And the German government is trying to tackle the various dimensions of this complex challenge. For example, we are working in various areas on the nexus of climate change, security, and peace. For example, under the German presidency, the G7 foreign ministers for the first time agreed to a declaration on climate, environment, peace, and security. At the same time, we've been contributing to the SIDS Lighthouse initiatives since 2016. And last but not least, as finance is key to the endeavors and the goals that the SIDS are pursuing, we see the urgency to deliver on the $100 billion goal, and we will do our best to work with our partners to ensure we are getting there as soon as possible. And in addition, we are convinced that it is now central to rapidly shape the fund for loss and damage and find out which are the funding mechanisms for responding to the needs of vulnerable countries so that it is available at COP28. And of course, we continue to work with partners to improve access to finance for SIDS, including from MDBs. So for the sake of brevity, let me conclude already by saying that we stand by IRENA in this important work benefiting SIDS. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Klitzing. Please bear with me. I will also now offer the floor to His Excellency Thomas Anker Christensen from Denmark.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and I will be brief, but allow me first of all to congratulate Palau on chairing this very important panel. Mr. President, the Danish Prime Minister sends her best regards. She has very cheerful memories of the two of you chairing the meeting of the High Ambition Coalition at heads of state level in Glasgow, and she has just been renominated as Prime Minister of Denmark after a successful election last fall. So she looks forward to meeting you and colleagues later on in Dubai for the COP28. And I mentioned this also to salute the leadership of the Marshall Islands with the High Ambition Coalition. That is a very important political coalition that works on high ambition in the climate negotiations and will, I'm sure, be a valuable partner for the United Arab Emirates as the president of the COP. In particular, worth mentioning in this regard, from our recent COP in Sharm el-Sheikh, was indeed the push for the Loss and Damage Fund. That was a very successful outcome of that COP, but also the mentioning in the Hague statement of the need to include a focus on the phase out of fossil fuels at the COP. And we think that that is also something we should bear in mind working towards COP28. Finally, the theme of MDB reform that is also referenced by you, Director General, is very much welcome, and the Barbados initiative, the Bridgetown Agenda, is a very important platform in that regard, and we highly support your focus as a COP presidency on bringing that into the COP, but probably we all need to work on that agenda before we get to to Dubai. Otherwise, it might be too late. There's already a spring meeting coming up in Washington where we need to focus on this question of MDB reform and how we bring global financial policies more in line with the needs of the vulnerable and including small island states. So just two other brief remarks. Denmark is a very happy supporter of the SIDS Lighthouse Initiative and salutes the leadership of SIDS to put forward very ambitious NDCs. The climate investment platform that the Director General mentioned is an initiative that Denmark has started with IRENA and that has now generated more than almost $700 million in investments, including in SIDS. And finally, several of you have referenced the role of wind, and I beg to differ a bit with the gentleman from the Pacific Secretariat. When it comes to offshore wind, we actually think there's a huge potential for offshore wind, both in the Pacific and the Caribbean. And with IRENA, we have launched the Global Offshore Wind Alliance that will have a special session tomorrow. But if you look at renewable energy, not only as an energy source for your own country, but also as an energy source that you can export, that you can capture in the form of green fuels, then suddenly large ocean states can become the energy producers of the future, way beyond the current situation you are facing. And we think that can be further explored within the ramifications of the Global Offshore Wind Alliance. So thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me to take the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Just very briefly, before I turn to the President of Palau, to say that, in my view, this has been really a very rich exchange. It confirms the fact that the SIDS are united in the many, many challenges that you are facing. I do want to agree also with the comments on the need to work on trying to find solutions, and coming up at COP28 in December with some solutions, some further developments that can allow SIDS to really make the energy transition as a very central point in the transformation towards a more sustainable, more healthy, and more harmonious development. So with that, thank you for bearing with me. It has been an honor for me to moderate, and I turn over to the President of Palau. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Espinosa and representatives, for a wonderful session and an opportunity to express our views and recommendations on, as SIDS, on a way forward toward COP28. Excellencies and partners, representatives, I would like to take this time and thank you all for the perspectives and the proposals offered as we plan ahead for COP28. I want to extend thanks to IRENA for convening this important SIDS Ministerial, and to Ms. Espinosa for moderating the interesting roundtable session. We will work towards seizing all energy transition opportunities to act for the Caribbean, Pacific, and AIS SIDS as we demonstrate our commitment and continuous collective action in increasing the inherent resilience and safeguarding our futures. The SIDS Lighthouse Initiative also represents a tailor-made platform of support and solutions for SIDS in our energy transition that we need to aptly leverage and utilize. We have listened carefully, and some key points that have come out of these discussions today include: SIDS will continue to work towards the achievement of this SDGs, especially and particularly SDG 7 on clean and affordable energy by 2030. COP28 is intended to be solutions-oriented. COP specifically for SIDS, including delivering serious progress on adaptation, which is crucial to SIDS, operationalization of loss and damage fund, and provide progress on climate finance, including support from the private sector. COP28 will focus on driving climate ambition and building global consensus. IRENA will be included in the vanguard of this effort of tripling financing for mitigation. Achieving ambitious targets in a realm dominated by fossil fuels is paramount for SIDS. Hence, the deployment of innovative and appropriate renewable energy technology is critical. We as SIDS need to take action at home. To drive progress, we need to be ambitious and committed, but also find relevant mechanisms, especially considering our limited resources and different developmental needs and capabilities. There is a call to address the need for better access to finance, sharing ways on how to remedy financing challenges for small islands. United, we are stronger. We must amplify the call for our need for appropriate financing support. Not only have global financing commitments not been met, but the allocation of those resources between mitigation and adaptation do not favor the rapidly changing environment and ravaging climate change impacts experienced by SIDS. We look forward to COP28 to deliver on its envisaged mandate as it relates to unlocking climate finance, as stated by His Excellency Majid Hassan Mohammed Al Sawadi of the United Arab Emirates. SIDS have been setting the pace in energy transition as a pathway to improve our resilience as we strive for our very existence. It is time now to rise up for SIDS, to shift the narrative from negotiation to implementation in our just energy transition. As President and Chair, I want to thank you all for your attendance and look forward to making strides toward the SIDS mission to COP28. Thank you. Koman Masulang.